The morning sun filtered through the transparent dome of Trading Station Meridian, casting long shadows across the bustling marketplace. Emma Brooks skipped alongside her mother, her small hand clutching a datapad displaying colorful images of alien creatures she had seen that day. At 8 years old, everything about the station fascinated her, from the floating cargo platforms to the strange languages that filled the air like music. "Stay close, sweetheart," Catherine Brooks said, glancing down at her daughter with a warm smile. She adjusted the diplomatic satchel on her shoulder, mentally reviewing the trade agreements she needed to finalize before the evening session. Emma nodded, but her attention had already drifted to a small creature darting between the market stalls. It looked like a cross between a cat and a bird, with iridescent feathers and tiny paws. The creature chirped at her, then scurried away down a side corridor. "Mommy, look. Can I follow it?" "Just for a minute?" Emma's eyes sparkled with innocent curiosity. Catherine hesitated, checking her wrist display. The Galactic Council representatives would not arrive for another 20 minutes. The corridor was well lit and appeared safe, lined with what looked like storage facilities and minor offices. "Stay where I can see you," Catherine said. "Do not go around any corners." Emma grinned and rushed after the creature, her small shoes tapping against the metal floor. The creature stayed just ahead of her, chirping playfully as if inviting her to follow. Emma laughed, completely absorbed in the chase. She did not notice when the corridor curved slightly, taking her just out of her mother's line of sight. The creature darted through an archway decorated with strange symbols that glowed faintly purple. Emma paused, remembering her mother's warning, but the creature turned back and chirped at her again. It seemed so friendly. Surely just a few more steps would be fine. She crossed through the archway into a circular chamber. The walls were covered in intricate carvings, and in the center stood a crystalline structure that hummed with soft energy. The small creature had vanished, but Emma barely noticed. The room was beautiful, like something from a fairy tale. "Pretty," she whispered, reaching out to touch one of the glowing symbols on the wall. The temperature in the room dropped suddenly. Emma turned to see 3 tall figures blocking the archway. They were Kralians, reptilian beings with scaled skin that shimmered green and gold. Their eyes were cold and unblinking as they stared at her. "Child," one of them spoke in heavily accented English, "you have violated sacred ground. This is forbidden to all outsiders." Emma's heart began to race. "I am sorry. I did not know. I was just chasing a little animal. I will leave now." She moved toward the exit, but the Kralians did not move aside. The tallest one, wearing armor marked with religious symbols, raised a weapon. It looked ceremonial but deadly. "The law is absolute," the guard said. "Violation of the sacred site carries only one punishment. It has been so for 10,000 years. "Please," Emma's voice trembled. "I am just a kid. I made a mistake. My mom is right outside. Please let me go to my mom." The guard's expression did not change. "The law does not recognize age. It does not recognize species. You have committed sacrilege." In the corridor, Catherine suddenly realized she could no longer hear Emma's footsteps. A cold fear gripped her heart. "Emma?" she called out, her voice sharp with worry. "Emma, where are you?" She ran down the corridor, her diplomatic training forgotten in the surge of maternal panic. She rounded the curve just in time to see the archway ahead. Through it, she glimpsed the 3 Kralian guards surrounding her daughter. "No! Stop!" "She is a child!" Catherine screamed, sprinting forward. The sound that followed would haunt her for the rest of her life. A single pulse of energy, bright and brief, and silence. Catherine burst into the chamber to find Emma crumpled on the floor, her small body still. The datapad lay beside her, its screen cracked but still displaying the happy images of alien creatures. "Emma! Emma, baby, wake up!" Catherine collapsed beside her daughter, gathering the small form into her arms. But Emma's eyes stared at nothing, and her chest did not rise or fall. The Kralian guard lowered his weapon. "The law has been satisfied. Remove the violator's body from sacred ground." Catherine looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. She was 8 years old. She did not understand. She was just playing. "How could you?" "Ignorance is not an excuse under Kralian law," the guard replied. "You will leave now, or you too will be judged for continued violation." By the time Daniel Brooks arrived, station security had already sealed the chamber. He found his wife sitting in the corridor, covered in their daughter's blood, rocking back and forth and whispering Emma's name over and over. The news spread through the station within minutes. Within an hour, it had reached Earth. Within 3 hours, every human in council space knew that a little girl had been executed for wandering into the wrong room while chasing a pet. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session 2 days later. The chamber was filled with representatives from 40 different species, their forms ranging from humanoid to completely alien. Ambassador Claire Donovan stood before them, her face exhausted from grief and rage, carefully controlled. The Krillian Empire murdered an 8-year-old human child for the crime of being curious, she said, her voice steady but cold. We demand justice. We demand that the guards responsible be held accountable. We demand that the Council recognize this act for what it is, a barbaric execution of an innocent. Vexthor, the senior council arbiter, regarded her with compound eyes that reflected no empathy. His insectoid form remained perfectly still as he spoke. Ambassador Donovan, the Council has reviewed all evidence and testimony. While the death of your offspring is regrettable, the Krillian religious laws are recognized under Council Charter. The guards acted within their legal authority as defined by their sovereign territory. Sovereign territory? Claire's control began to slip. This was a public station under Council jurisdiction. That child had every right to be here. She made an innocent mistake. The sacred site exists as Krillian sovereign territory by treaty, Vexthor replied. The Council cannot and will not interfere in the internal religious laws of member species. This matter is closed. Closed? Claire stepped forward. You are telling me that a child's life means nothing? That ancient laws matter more than basic morality? We are telling you that the law was followed, Vexthor said. Your emotional response, while understandable for a primitive species, does not change legal reality. We suggest Earth learns to respect the diversity of galactic cultures. Claire stared at him for a long moment. Then she carefully removed her diplomatic credentials from around her neck and placed them on the speaker's platform. Then Earth will respond in our own way, she said quietly. And you will learn what happens when you call human love for our children primitive. Security escorted her from the chamber. Behind her, the council members began discussing trade routes, already moving on to other business. Emma Brooks's death was recorded in the official logs and forgotten within the week. But on Earth, in homes and offices and government buildings around the world, people watched the council's decision with growing fury. For the first time in human history, every nation, every culture, every ideology found common cause. A little girl with a bright smile had been killed, and the galaxy had shrugged. In Geneva, the World Security Council gathered. Their faces were grim as they authorized protocols that had been prepared for decades but never used. Whatever happened next, Earth would never forget Emma Brooks. And the galaxy would never forget what humanity did in her name. 14 days after Emma Brooks died, every screen in the Galactic Council chamber flickered to life without warning. The council members, gathered for routine economic discussions, looked up in surprise as the image of a middle-aged human man appeared before them. His hair was gray at the temples, and his eyes carried the weight of profound sadness mixed with cold determination. Members of the Galactic Council, President Marcus Webb began, his voice calm and measured. I am speaking to you today on behalf of the people of Earth. 2 weeks ago you ruled that the death of Emma Brooks was legally justified. You told us to respect your diversity of cultures and accept your decision. We have considered your words carefully. Vexthor leaned forward in his seat, his antennae twitching with irritation. This is a violation of communication protocols. How did humans gain access to this channel? President Webb continued as if he had not been interrupted. Effective immediately. Earth is withdrawing all human personnel, trade representatives, and diplomatic staff from Council space. You have 72 hours to facilitate safe passage for our people. After that time, any human remaining in your territory does so at their own risk, without Earth's protection or involvement. A murmur spread through the chamber. Several species began speaking at once. The Talaxian trade minister stood abruptly. President Webb, surely this is an overreaction. The economic partnerships alone would. We are done talking, Marcus said simply. For 20 years, Earth has participated in your council. We have followed your rules, respected your traditions, and contributed to your economy. In return, when our child was killed, you told us her life had no value compared to ancient laws. You have shown us exactly what humanity means to the Galactic Council. We understand now. Earth will chart its own course. The transmission ended. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Some species expressed outrage at the breach of protocol. Others seemed relieved that the troublesome humans were removing themselves from galactic affairs. Vexthor called for order, his voice cutting through the noise. Let them retreat to their small world, he announced. Earth's departure will be noted in the records. Their seat will be offered to a more cooperative species. Humanity has proven itself too emotional and unstable for galactic society. This outcome, while unfortunate, is probably for the best." Many council members nodded in agreement. A few looked uncertain but said nothing. Within hours, the council had moved on to other business, confident that the matter was resolved. Across council space, human outposts and colonies began the evacuation process. It happened with surprising speed and efficiency. Within 48 hours, every human civilian had boarded transport ships. Within 60 hours, the last human diplomat had departed. Earth's embassy stood empty, their doors sealed, their communication arrays silent. On the trading station where Emma had died, the merchants who had worked alongside humans for years watched the exodus with mixed feelings. A young merchant named Korvax, whose family had partnered with human traders for 3 generations, stood in the empty marketplace feeling oddly hollow. "They really left," his sister said beside him. "Just like that. 20 years of friendship gone." "Can you blame them?" Korvax replied quietly. "We all saw what happened to that little girl. The council did nothing. If someone killed my daughter and called it legal, I would leave too." On the planet Zenthar, a junior analyst named Tillix sat in front of multiple data screens, reviewing routine reports on member species activities. Tillix was a Novari, a species known for their analytical minds and attention to detail. Something in the latest Earth data caught her eye. Earth's industrial output had increased dramatically in the past 10 days. Factories were running at maximum capacity. Energy consumption had spiked across every human settlement in their home system. But there were no exports. Nothing was leaving Earth's territory. Tillix pulled up historical data and compared it. In a typical month, Earth produced goods and sent approximately 40% to council markets. But now, despite production increasing by 300%, not a single cargo ship had left Earth's system. "Where is it all going?" Tillix muttered to herself, her long fingers dancing across the data interface. She cross-referenced with gravitational sensor data from the edge of Earth's system. There were anomalies, brief distortions in space-time that appeared and disappeared within seconds. They were centered around Earth's moon and several points in the outer asteroid belt. Tillix compiled her findings into a report and submitted it to her supervisor. 2 days later, it was returned with a single note. Earth is no longer a council concern. Focus on current member species activities. She tried twice more to raise the issue, each time being told that Earth's internal affairs were irrelevant. Frustrated, Tillix filed the report in her personal archives and returned to her assigned duties. But she kept monitoring Earth's system in her spare time, unable to shake the feeling that something important was happening. On Earth's moon, in caverns that had been secretly excavated over 15 years, Dr. Helen Price walked through corridors filled with advanced technology. The facility stretched for kilometers underground, a massive construction project that had somehow remained hidden from galactic surveillance. "How many are operational?" she asked the engineer beside her. 7 of the primary units are ready for deployment," the engineer replied. "The quantum displacement drives have passed all tests. We can move them across any distance we choose, instantly." Helen nodded, her expression serious. "And the targeting systems?" "Precise to within 10 meters at any range. We can drop a ship exactly where we need it, when we need it there." They entered a control room where dozens of technicians monitored screens showing various ships under construction. These were not like the vessels Earth had used for peaceful exploration. They were larger, more advanced, built with technology that had been developed in secret for 2 decades. "Project Guardian was always meant to be our insurance policy," Helen said softly. "We hoped we would never need it. But after what happened to Emma, after the Council's response, the President authorized full activation." The engineer looked at one of the screens showing the massive vessel in the final stages of assembly. "Do you think they have any idea what we are capable of?" "They think we are primitive," Helen replied. "Emotional, unstable. They think we are running home to hide because we cannot handle their superior civilization. Let them think that. When the time comes, they will learn the truth." 6 weeks passed. The Galactic Council settled into a new normal without human participation. Several species began claiming former human trade routes. The Vren Corporation, known for aggressive business practices, moved quickly to occupy abandoned human facilities. Vexthor formally proposed closing Earth's empty embassy and redistributing their council seat to the Dendari, a species that had been waiting for admission for 30 years. The vote was scheduled for the following month. On Earth, Daniel and Catherine Brooks stood in Central Park before a memorial that had been erected for their daughter. Emma's face, captured in a moment of pure joy, was etched into the stone. Flowers covered the ground around it. placed by strangers from around the world who had mourned with them. Catherine traced her fingers over Emma's name. They forgot her already, she whispered. To them, she was just a statistic, a closed case. Not everyone forgot, a voice said behind them. They turned to find Admiral Patricia Cross standing in her dress uniform, her expression sympathetic but determined. She had served in Earth's defense forces for 30 years and carried herself with quiet authority. Admiral, Daniel said, straightening, we did not expect. I wanted to tell you something, Patricia interrupted gently. Something that the public does not know yet. The first of our new humanitarian response vessels is complete. The crew voted unanimously on what to name it. She paused, meeting Catherine's eyes. They want to call it the UHSV Emma's Light. Catherine's breath caught. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but for the first time since that terrible day, they were not entirely tears of grief. A ship? Daniel asked. What kind of ship? Patricia looked back toward the memorial, the kind that makes sure what happened to your daughter never happens to anyone else's child, the kind that shows the galaxy what Earth really values. Your Emma's memory is not forgotten. It is becoming something powerful. Something that will change everything. She saluted the memorial, then turned and walked away, leaving the grieving parents standing in the spring sunshine, holding each other as hope and purpose began to grow alongside their sorrow. In orbit above them, hidden in the dark side of the moon, the UHSV Emma's Light waited in its secret dock. It was painted white and blue, marked with Earth's symbols of peace and protection. Its quantum drives hummed with potential energy, ready to carry it anywhere in the galaxy in the blink of an eye. The galaxy thought Earth had retreated in weakness. They had no idea that humanity was preparing to return with purpose, and when they did, nothing would ever be the same. 3 months passed with complete silence from Earth. No transmissions, no trade requests, no diplomatic communications of any kind. To the Galactic Council, it seemed humanity had truly withdrawn from galactic affairs, nursing their wounded pride in isolation. The various species of the Council gradually relaxed. What had initially seemed like a crisis now appeared to be a simple problem that had solved itself. The emotional humans were gone, and business could continue as usual. In the council chamber, Vex Thor stood before the assembly with an air of satisfaction. As you can see from the economic reports, the departure of Earth has had minimal impact on overall trade. The gaps they left have been filled efficiently by other species. I propose we formally close the human embassy and redistribute their council seat. The vote passed with overwhelming support. Only a handful of younger species abstained and none voted against it. Earth's nameplate was removed from the council chamber that same day. To most members, humanity had become a footnote, a species that could not handle the complexities of galactic civilization. The Krillian delegation celebrated quietly. They had faced no consequences for Emma's death, and the troublesome humans who had questioned their laws were gone. The younger Krillians who had privately expressed discomfort with the incident were silenced by their elders. Across council space, former human territories and trade routes were quickly claimed. The Vren Corporation, a massive conglomerate known for its ruthless business practices, moved the most aggressively. Within weeks, they had occupied 7 former human outposts and claimed mining rights to 3 asteroid fields that humans had previously worked. On the remote mining world of Candor Prime, the Vren Corporation found something else worth claiming. A refugee camp housing nearly 2,000 Talari, a peaceful species whose homeworld had been destroyed by a natural disaster 5 years earlier. The Talari had survived thanks to human advocacy in the Council, which had pressured other species to provide aid and shelter, but with humans gone and no other species willing to challenge Vren's power, the corporation moved in with a different plan. The Talari were offered a choice: work in the mines under Vren contract or be relocated to a penal colony for unauthorized settlement on corporate property. A Talari woman named Sella stood with her daughter Mira in the refugee camp's central square as Vren security forces delivered the ultimatum. Mira was 9 years old, just a year older than Emma Brooks had been. Sella held her daughter close as the Vren commander spoke. "You have 24 hours to decide," the commander announced. "Work contracts will be distributed tomorrow. Anyone who refuses will be detained." After the Vren forces left, Sella and the other Talari gathered to discuss their options. They had no weapons, no ships, and no allies. The Council had not responded to any of their requests for help in the past month. "What about Earth?" a young Talari named Pax asked. "The human diplomat, the one named Eric Foster, he promised us. He said Earth does not abandon the innocent." An older Talari shook his head sadly. "Earth is gone, child. They have their own problems now. We cannot count on them." But Sella remembered Eric's words too. She remembered how he had worked tirelessly to secure food and medicine for her people, how he had learned basic Talari phrases to communicate better with the refugees, how he had played with the children, including Mira, making them laugh despite their losses. That night, Sella used an old communication console to send a message toward Earth. She did not know if anyone would receive it. She did not know if anyone would care. But she had to try. "This is Sella of the Talari refugees on Kandor Prime," she said into the recorder. "The Vren Corporation is forcing us into slavery. We have no protection. The Council will not help us. I know Earth has left, but I remember what you promised. I remember Eric Foster saying that Earth protects those who cannot protect themselves. If anyone can hear this, we need help. Please, we have children here." She sent the message through every channel she could access, then held Mira close and waited for a dawn she feared would bring only suffering. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council received the same distress call. It arrived during a session discussing trade regulations. A junior staff member brought it to the Council's attention. Exthor reviewed the message briefly. "The Talari situation is unfortunate, but it is a corporate matter now. Vren has legal claim to Kandor Prime. We cannot interfere in legitimate business operations." A representative from a smaller species stood hesitantly. "But they are refugees. We gave them sanctuary there. Do we not have some responsibility?" "Sanctuary was provided under human advocacy," Vexthor replied. "With Earth's departure, previous arrangements are void. If the Talari cannot support themselves, they must accept available employment opportunities. This matter is not appropriate for Council intervention." The discussion was tabled for future consideration, which everyone understood meant it would be forgotten. The Council moved on to more important topics. But far away, on a moon orbiting a blue and green planet, Sella's message reached a very different audience. In the command center of Earth's hidden lunar facility, operators monitoring deep space communications picked up her transmission. Within minutes, it was routed to Admiral Patricia Cross, who listened to the entire message twice before calling an emergency meeting. Helen Price arrived first, followed quickly by Fleet Commander Nathan Ross and a dozen other senior officials. They gathered around a holographic display showing Kandor Prime's location. "The Talari were under human protection," Nathan said grimly. "Eric Foster personally guaranteed their safety before we pulled out. We knew this might happen." "The fleet is ready," Patricia said. "Emma's Light and her support ships have completed all final tests. The crews had been training for exactly this scenario." Helen pulled up data on Kandor Prime. Vren has 6 security vessels in orbit. They are not military grade, but they are armed. The Talari camp is located here, in a valley surrounded by mining facilities. Civilian population in the area is approximately 50,000, mostly Vren employees and contracted workers. "Can we extract the Talari without starting a war?" Nathan asked. Patricia smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "We are not going to war, Commander. We are conducting a humanitarian operation. Vren is violating the rights of refugees under interstellar law. We are simply enforcing standards that the Council has chosen to ignore." "When do we launch?" Helen asked. "Immediately," Patricia replied. "But first, I want to send a message. Not to the Council, not to Vren. To every species in the galaxy that is watching to see what Earth does next." She recorded a brief statement that would be broadcast on all frequencies the moment Emma's Light arrived at Kandor Prime. In it, she explained Earth's new policy clearly. Where innocent beings were threatened and the Council remained silent, humanity would respond. Not with conquest or aggression, but with protection and aid. Emma Brooks had died because the galaxy valued old laws over young lives. Earth would make sure that never happened again to anyone's child. Meanwhile, on Zenthar, Tillix was working late in her office when her monitoring systems detected something impossible. Gravitational anomalies were appearing near Kandor Prime, massive distortions in space-time that should not exist. She pulled up visual sensors from the nearest monitoring station. At first there was nothing. Then, in the span of a single heartbeat, 3 enormous vessels appeared in orbit around Kandor Prime. They had not traveled there. They had not emerged from faster-than-light transit. They had simply appeared, as if space itself had folded to bring them instantly across 40 light-years. The ships were unlike anything in Council records. Sleek and powerful, painted white and blue, marked with symbols Tillix recognized as Earth's emblems of medicine and protection. The largest ship had a name written across its hull in multiple languages, UHSV Emma's Light. "They did not retreat," Tillix whispered, staring at her screens in amazement. "They were preparing." She immediately tried to file a report, but before she could complete it, every communication channel in Council space lit up with a transmission from the human fleet. Admiral Patricia Cross's voice was calm but carried an unmistakable authority. This is Earth's humanitarian fleet responding to a distress call from Candor Prime. We have come to ensure the safety of the Talari refugees. This is not an act of war. This is not a territorial claim. This is simply a promise kept. Where innocent beings suffer and those in power do nothing, Earth will act. This is Emma's legacy. This is humanity's purpose. On Candor Prime, Sella stood outside her shelter, looking up at the night sky. 3 bright new stars had appeared, and as she watched, smaller lights began descending toward the surface. Landing craft, marked with medical crosses and peace symbols coming down through the atmosphere like angels. Mira tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mama, who are they?" Sella felt tears running down her face, but this time they were tears of relief and hope. "They are friends, little one. They are the humans, and they came back for us." The 6 Vren Corporation security vessels moved to intercept the human fleet, their weapon systems powering up. On the bridge of the lead Vren ship, Commander Kolthar stared at the 3 human vessels with a mixture of confusion and irritation. "Unknown vessels, you are in corporate territory without authorization," he broadcast. "Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded, or we will open fire." Admiral Patricia Cross stood on the bridge of Emma's Light, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the Vren ships position themselves. Around her, the crew worked with quiet efficiency, their faces calm and focused. "Admiral, they are targeting us," Lieutenant Amy Chen reported from the weapons station. 6 ships, full weapons lock. "Do not return targeting," Patricia ordered. "Activate quantum shielding. Let them fire first if they choose." The Vren commander waited 10 seconds, then gave the order. All 6 security vessels fired simultaneously, particle beams and projectile weapons converging on Emma's Light. The weapons hit an invisible barrier 10 meters from the ship's hull and simply stopped. The energy dissipated harmlessly into space. The projectiles hung suspended for a moment, then drifted away, their momentum completely absorbed. On the Vren command ship, every alarm began screaming at once. Their sensors could not explain what had just happened. The human ship had not deployed conventional shields. The attacks had simply been negated by some technology they had never encountered. "What kind of shield is that?" Kolthar demanded. His science officer shook his head, his expression confused. "Sir, it is not a shield. Not like anything in our database. It appears to be a quantum field that stops anything from entering a defined space. The energy does not reflect or absorb, it just ceases to exist within the field." Patricia's voice came through on all Vren frequencies. "Vren vessels, we have no desire for conflict. Stand down your weapons. We are here only for the Talari refugees." Kolthar felt his pride wounded. "Fire again! All weapons, maximum power." The Vren ships unleashed everything they had. For 30 seconds, the space around Emma's Light lit up with weapons fire. When the barrage ended, the human ship remained completely undamaged, hovering peacefully in the darkness. "Your turn," Patricia said quietly to her crew. Emma's Light and its 2 support vessels, Mercy's Hand and Hope's Shield, activated their gravitational field generators. These were not weapons in the traditional sense. They were precise manipulation tools that could create or eliminate gravity in specific locations. The Vren ships suddenly found themselves pulled gently but irresistibly away from Candor Prime. Their engines fired at full power, but it made no difference. The gravitational fields held them as easily as a parent holds a child's hand. "Your vessels are being moved to a safe distance," Patricia broadcast. "You will not be harmed. Your crews are in no danger. But you will not interfere with our humanitarian mission." The 6 Vren ships were positioned in a stable orbit far from the planet, their weapon systems carefully disabled by targeted gravitational pulses that disrupted their power flow without damaging the ships themselves. The crews were unharmed, merely helpless to act. On the surface of Candor Prime, Vren security forces mobilized as the human landing craft descended. The refugee camp was surrounded by armed guards within minutes. The Vren site commander, a woman named Rixla, ordered her forces to form a perimeter. "No one gets in or out," she commanded. "These humans are violating corporate sovereignty." The first landing craft touched down just outside the refugee camp. Its ramp lowered, and Commander Lisa Grant stepped out, flanked by 24 personnel in white and blue uniforms. They carried no visible weapons, only medical equipment and communication devices. Lisa walked directly toward the Vren security line. She was a tall woman with dark skin and calm eyes that had seen combat but preferred peace. Behind her, the landing craft disgorged more personnel, along with supplies and equipment. "This area is restricted," Rixel announced, her weapon trained on Lisa. "Turn back immediately." Lisa stopped 3 meters away and met Rixel's eyes steadily. We are here under interstellar refugee protection laws. The Talari are legally recognized refugees. Forcing them into labor contracts violates their protected status. We are evacuating them to safety. This is Vren property. You have no authority here. We have moral authority, Lisa replied. And we have the means to act on it. You can either allow us to proceed peacefully, or you can waste time while we proceed anyway. Your choice. Rixla considered her options. She had 100 guards. The humans had already demonstrated technology far beyond anything the Council possessed. Her orders were to protect corporate assets, but refugees were not assets worth dying for. Let them through, she said finally, lowering her weapon. But this violation will be reported to the Council. Please do, Lisa said with a slight smile. We want everyone to know exactly what we are doing. Inside the refugee camp, Sela watched as human personnel moved efficiently through the shelters. They brought medical scanners, food, water, and blankets. A young human medic approached her and Mira. "Hello, my name is Ben Cooper," he said in careful Talari. "Are you hurt? Do you need medicine?" Mira hid behind her mother shyly. Sela felt overwhelmed by the kindness in the young man's eyes. "We are okay," she managed to say, "but many of our elderly are sick. And the children need food. Real food, not the rations Vren gave us." "We brought everything you need," Ben assured her, "and we are taking all of you to a safe place. A human colony world where you can live freely. No forced labor, no threats, just safety." Over the next 6 hours, the human crews worked with incredible organization. Every Talari refugee was given a medical examination. Those who were sick or injured received immediate treatment. Children were given toys and sweets. The elderly were carried on stretchers to the landing craft with gentle care. Lisa walked through the camp, ensuring nothing was missed. She stopped when she saw a small memorial the Talari had built, simple stones arranged in a circle with flowers placed in the center. A handwritten sign said, "For those we lost." An old Talari man stood beside it. "We remember our dead," he said softly, "as you remember yours." Lisa understood. Emma Brooks. "You know about her?" "We know," the old man replied. "The human child killed for entering the wrong room. Eric Foster told us about her before you left. He said her death changed everything. We did not understand then, but now we see. You came back because of her." "We came back because it is right," Lisa said. "But yes, Emma's memory guides us. We will never let another child suffer if we can prevent it." By the time the sun rose over Kandor Prime, all 2,000 Talari refugees were safely aboard the human ships. The landing craft had also brought construction equipment, agricultural supplies, and medical facilities. These were left behind with simple instructions in multiple languages. "For anyone else who needs help," Lisa explained to the gathered crowd of non-Vren workers who had watched the operation, "if others come seeking refuge, these supplies are here, and if you need help, send a message to these coordinates. Earth will hear you." The human fleet prepared to depart. In the cargo holds and passenger sections of Emma's Light, the Talari refugees settled into clean quarters with soft beds and warm food. Children laughed for the first time in months. Parents cried with relief. On the bridge, Patricia prepared her final broadcast. She knew the entire galaxy was watching now. Tillix had not been the only one to detect their arrival. Every species with monitoring stations had seen the impossible appearance of human ships, the effortless disabling of Vren security, and the precise humanitarian operation. "People of the galaxy," Patricia began, her image transmitted across every communication channel in Council space. "Today, Earth kept a promise. The Talari refugees were under human protection. When they called for help, we answered, this is not conquest. This is not war. This is simply what we believe is right." She paused, letting her words sink in. "The Galactic Council told us that Emma Brooks's death was legal, that ancient laws matter more than a child's life. We disagree. We believe every innocent life has value. Every child, every refugee, every being who cannot protect themselves deserves protection." Patricia's expression grew more intense. "So let this be clear to everyone watching. Where innocent beings suffer and those in power remain silent, Earth will respond. We will not ask permission. We will not wait for Council approval. We will act. This is Emma's legacy. This is humanity's promise." The transmission ended. Emma's Light and its escort vessels shimmered once, space folding around them, and they vanished. One moment they were there, the next they were gone, having crossed 40 light years in an instant to return to Earth with their rescued passengers. In orbit above Candor Prime, the Vren security vessels slowly regained control of their systems. Commander Kolthar stared at the empty space where the human fleet had been. "What just happened?" his second officer asked quietly. Kolthar had no answer. Nothing in his 30 years of military experience had prepared him for what he had just witnessed. An enemy that could appear anywhere instantly, that could disable his ships without firing a shot, that could carry out complex operations with perfect precision and then vanish again. "Get me a connection to Council headquarters," he finally said. "They need to know. Earth is not hiding, they are hunting, and they are far more dangerous than anyone imagined." On Zentar, Tillix watched the recordings of the operation over and over. She saw the quantum shields, the gravitational weapons, the instant transportation. She calculated the energy requirements and technological sophistication needed for such capabilities. Earth had been developing this technology for decades while peacefully participating in the Council. They had shared their science, their culture, their friendship, and the Council had shown them that none of it mattered when their child was killed. "We made a terrible mistake," Tillix whispered to her empty office. "We taught the humans that the Council cannot be trusted, and now they have decided to become the protection that the Council will not provide." She began preparing a new report, knowing this time it could not be ignored. Earth had returned, but not as the cooperative junior species that had left. They had returned as something the galaxy had never seen before, a humanitarian superpower that could enforce its values anywhere, anytime, against anyone who threatened the innocent. The galaxy was about to change, and the Council was completely unprepared for what was coming. 6 months after the Candor Prime rescue, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. Where once 40 species had gathered in unity, now barely half attended regularly. Empty seats marked the absence of 14 species who had withdrawn or reduced their participation, choosing instead to establish direct relationships with Earth. Vexthor stood at the central podium, his compound eyes scanning the sparse attendance with barely concealed frustration. The once confident arbiter now looked tired and uncertain. "This council faces a crisis of legitimacy," he admitted, his voice lacking its former authority. "Earth's humanitarian fleet has responded to 9 separate crises in the past 6 months. In each case, they have acted without council approval, often in direct contradiction to our decisions. A representative from the Ilari species, a feline humanoid named Kess, stood to speak, perhaps because the council's decisions had been inadequate. When the mining disaster occurred on Talver 3, how long did it take us to organize aid? 3 weeks. The humans arrived in 6 hours and saved 4,000 lives. They violated sovereign space, Vexthor countered weakly. They saved my people, Kess replied sharply. While this council debated jurisdiction and proper procedure, miners were dying. Earth acted. My government has formally withdrawn from council voting until reforms are implemented. Similar stories came from other species. Earth's response times were impossible to match. Their medical technology surpassed anything the council possessed. Most importantly, they asked for nothing in return except the safety of those they protected. The Krillian delegation sat in uncomfortable silence. Over the past months, they had become increasingly isolated. What had once seemed like a righteous defense of ancient law now appeared cruel and senseless to much of the galaxy. Younger Krillians had begun questioning their leadership publicly. Ambassador Thexkor, who had replaced the now-disgraced Vexthor as senior Krillian representative, finally stood. His scales were dull with stress, and his voice carried shame. The Krillian Empire wishes to address the incident involving the human child Emma Brooks, he began, and the chamber fell completely silent. An internal investigation has revealed that our guards had the authority to detain rather than execute. The decision to kill was made by individuals who interpreted our laws in the most extreme manner possible. He paused, struggling with words his people had never thought they would speak. The Krillian Empire acknowledges that our response was excessive. A child's curiosity should not have resulted in death. We have begun reforms to our sacred site protocols to prevent such tragedies in the future. It was not quite an apology, but it was more than the Krillians had offered anyone in 10,000 years. Several representatives looked shocked. Others nodded approval. On Zentar, Tillix had been promoted 3 times in 6 months. Her early warnings about Earth's capabilities had proven accurate, and now she served as the Council's primary analyst on human activities. She stood before the Council's Security Committee, presenting her latest findings. Earth's humanitarian fleet now consists of 12 primary vessels and over 40 support ships, she reported, displaying holographic images. They have established what they call guardian stations in 7 neutral zones. These stations offer medical care, food, and shelter to any species in need, free of charge, a committee member interrupted. And their military capabilities? Overwhelming, Tillix answered bluntly. Their quantum displacement technology allows instant travel across any distance. Their defensive systems make them effectively invulnerable to conventional weapons. Their gravitational manipulation technology can disable any ship without destroying it. They could conquer the entire council in weeks if they chose to, but they have not, another member observed. No, Tillix agreed. They have used force only to protect others, never to expand territory or gain resources. In every intervention, they have prioritized saving lives over strategic advantage. However, their moral authority is rapidly exceeding our own. 32 species have formally requested Earth's protection in writing. Hundreds more have established informal relationships with human guardian stations. The implications were clear. The Council was becoming irrelevant, not through military defeat, but through humanitarian obsolescence. On the human colony world of New Haven, the Talari refugees had established a thriving community. Sella stood in a marketplace filled with colorful stalls selling goods from a dozen different species. Talari, humans, and several other refugee groups lived together in harmony. Catherine and Daniel Brooks walked through the market, visiting the place their daughter's memory had helped create. They stopped at Sella's stall, where she sold traditional Talari textiles. Mrs. Brooks, Mr. Brooks, Sella greeted them warmly. Please, let me show you something. She led them to a community center where Talari children attended school alongside human children. On the wall was a large mural painted by the students. It showed a small human girl with bright eyes and a warm smile, surrounded by children of many different species, all holding hands. The children painted this, Sella explained softly. They call her the guardian angel. They know her story. They know that her memory is why they are safe here. Mira ran up, now healthy and happy, her face bright with excitement. Mrs. Brooks, look what I learned. She held up a drawing she had made showing Emma's light landing at the refugee camp. Catherine knelt down, tears streaming down her face as she looked at the drawing. It is beautiful, sweetheart. Is it true that the ship is named after your daughter? Mira asked innocently. Yes, Daniel answered, his voice thick with emotion. It is. She must have been very special, Mira said. I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you very much, Catherine said, pulling the girl into a gentle hug. Later that evening, Catherine and Daniel sat with Admiral Patricia Cross in a quiet garden overlooking the colony. The Admiral had come to discuss Earth's growing role in galactic affairs. The Council has formally requested negotiations, Patricia said. They want Earth to return to diplomatic participation, but they also want us to stop operating independently. What did President Webb say? Daniel asked. He asked me to consult with you first, Patricia replied. Your daughter's memory drives everything we do now. The decision about how to proceed should consider your feelings. Catherine looked out at the colony, where refugees from a dozen worlds lived in peace. Emma would want us to keep helping people, but she would also want us to do it right. What does that mean? Patricia asked. It means we do not return to the Council as it was, Catherine said firmly. We return only if they agree to real reforms. Protection for innocence must be written into Council law. Response protocols must prioritize lives over politics. And there must be accountability when those rules are broken. Daniel nodded agreement. Emma's death cannot just be forgotten or dismissed with political compromise. If the Council wants Earth back, they need to prove they have learned why we left. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Council chamber filled to capacity for the first time in months. Every species, even those who had withdrawn, sent representatives. At the front of the chamber, a new memorial stood. A simple stone with Emma Brooks's name and face, and beneath it, words in every council language. May no child of any species ever again be sacrificed to law without mercy. Ambassador Claire Donovan returned to Earth's podium, no longer wearing the expression of grief and rage that had marked her departure. Now she looked calm, purposeful, and uncompromising. Earth will return to council participation, she announced, but not as we were before. We return with conditions. She outlined the new framework. Protection protocols for innocent beings, especially children, in all council territories, mandatory response times for humanitarian crises, independent oversight of cultural practices that caused harm, and accountability, real accountability when those standards were violated. These are not requests, Claire said clearly. These are requirements. Earth's humanitarian fleet will continue operating regardless of council approval. But if you want our cooperation, our trade, our partnership, then you will meet these standards. Vexthor, now a junior member of the council after his demotion, spoke hesitantly. And if we refuse? Claire's expression was not hostile, but it was absolutely firm. Then the council will continue to decline while Earth builds a new system with those species who share our values. We do not need the council. But the council needs moral legitimacy, and right now you do not have it. The vote was called. Species after species voted in favor of Earth's requirements. The reforms passed with overwhelming support. Only 3 species abstained. None voted against, knowing that opposition would mark them as enemies of basic decency. As the vote concluded, Thexcor approached the Earth delegation privately. He carried a small box which he opened to reveal a Krillian memory crystal, an object of deep cultural significance. This contains a full recording of the incident involving Emma Brooks, he said quietly, and a formal acknowledgement of wrongdoing from the Krillian High Council. It'll be placed in our most sacred archives so that future generations remember our shame and learn from it. Claire accepted the crystal. Thank you. This does not undo what happened, but it matters. I know, Thexcor said. My daughter is the same age Emma was. After the incident, I could not stop thinking about how I would feel if it had been her. That thought changed me. It changed many of us. That evening, as delegates from across the galaxy mingled in diplomatic receptions, something remarkable was visible. Many wore small blue ribbons pinned to their clothing. It had started with a few younger species, but had spread rapidly. The ribbons represented support for what was now formally called Emma's Law, the new protection framework the Council had adopted. In a quiet corner, Tillix found Claire and offered her own ribbon in solidarity. I tried to warn them, Tillix said. When Earth first left, I saw the signs that you were preparing something. No one would listen. Would you have stopped us? Claire asked. Tillix considered the question carefully. No. I would have tried to convince the Council to change before you had to force the issue. But I am glad you did what you did. The Council needed to be confronted with its failures. Claire smiled. Then maybe there is hope for the Council after all. If enough beings like you push for what is right, real change becomes possible. As the reception continued, Catherine and Daniel watched from Earth via video link. They saw diplomats from dozens of worlds celebrating the new era of cooperation and protection. They saw Emma's memorial, now a permanent fixture in the council chamber. They saw a galaxy beginning to embrace the values their daughter's death had highlighted. Do you think she would be proud? Daniel asked quietly. Catherine watched Mira playing with other children in the background of their video feed, safe and happy in their new home. I think she would be glad that something good came from something so terrible. Emma always wanted to help people. Now, her name means protection for children across the entire galaxy. On Emma's light, orbiting peacefully near Earth's Guardian Station Alpha, the crew gathered for their weekly memorial service. They stood before a holographic image of Emma, sharing stories of the lives they had saved that week because of the mission she inspired. Commander Lisa Grant spoke for them all. We serve in her name, we protect in her memory. And we never forget that every life we save honors the life that was lost. The galaxy had changed. The Council had changed. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth that humanity had forced the universe to acknowledge. No law, no tradition, no ancient custom was more important than the life of a child. Emma Brooks had died senselessly, but her death had awakened a sleeping giant, and that giant had chosen not vengeance, but justice. Not conquest, but compassion. Earth had found its purpose among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same.